Today is a proper miserable April day. Throwing it down with rain. And apparently we're now going to get rain right up until 1st of May. Might get an odd day of sunshine in between, but not a deal. What I suppose in one respect, it's preparing that ground ready for these plants going in and giving a nice natural watering to the ones that's already out there. But it's just not fit at the moment to actually go outside and do anything. And it's also windy on top of everything else. It is April and we expect April showers. And that's exactly what we're getting today. So we're back in greenhouse looking at what other jobs that we can get done today. And we did sow some sweet peas not too long ago, and we got quite good germination from those. And those are seeds that we saved from last year and dried out. We dried out the pods and then we took the seeds out of them. So of course these plants have cost us nothing this year. And we put a couple of seeds in each cell, and some of them I've got 2 plants in each cell, and then there's the odd one where only one's come up. But that's the whole point of putting a couple of seeds in, just to guarantee we get at least something for waiting. And we did a couple of packs of those. Unfortunately, I've seen on weather forecasts that in a few days' time it could be dropping back down to around 1 degree, which is quite cold as we're approaching May. And I want to get these sweet peas put outside, but I think for a minute it would make more sense to just put them on and just wait that extra couple of weeks, because we are now getting to that point where we'll be able to put everything outside because we'll have passed that last frost date. So rather than get a little bit too giddy too soon and start putting things out when there is a risk of frost, it makes more sense just to wait a couple more weeks after we've waited all this time during autumn and winter. At least then we know we'll be safe. And I've got another drip on greenhouse as well, something else that needs fixing, because we had quite bad winds over the last few days and it's pulled that piece of perspex off that I put on. So as soon as that rain calms down, we'll get that fixed. We also sowed some extra peas, and again 2 peas in each cell, and we did quite a lot of those, and we soaked these peas overnight before we planted them. And from what I can see, both seeds have germinated in each cell, so we've got a lot of pea plants there to go out. Those first ones we put out didn't seem to do too well. They're still alive, but they yellowed after a couple of days. So whether that was some kind of transplant shock or it actually dropped too cold too soon for them, I'm not sure. They are still trying to grow, but obviously very slowly, which is the reason I'm not too keen on putting things like this out too early. Because if it does drop cold, they're not going to grow that much anyway. Which is why we wait. And people have asked me if it's alright now to put the tomatoes in the greenhouses in ground. And personally I'd say no, not just yet. I class things like tomatoes the same as I do aubergines, courgettes and peppers, and even French beans. They're just not cold hardy plants. So if we do get that sudden drop in temperature, it's not going to do your plants any good. You don't want them getting hit by a frost, so you're better off keeping them in the containers where you can cover them up and just let them grow on just for a little while longer. And the same with your potatoes. If you've got the tops of potato plants sticking out already, as we have, then just be ready to cover those up, because if we do get a frost and it hits the tops of them plants, they're going to turn black and start to die back, and then your seed potatoes are going to have to start all over again from scratch, and then you've probably lost 2 months worth of growth. So we're holding on a little bit, we're keeping an eye on that weather, and we're just getting ready to still pop a little bit of fleece over things as we need. So for me personally, I wouldn't put tomato plants in ground just yet. We've had a couple more plants come up in these trays, and these we've been germinating in this greenhouse. We've not took them indoors. And these little ones that's just come up there, they're melon plants. Crimson sweet they're called. And even though they're not cold hardy plants, because we keep getting these days where there's a bit of sunshine, through daytime, and then at night time it's not dropped too cold, these plants have still germinated. And then we've got a bit more germination in here. Jack the Little pumpkin plants. We grew those last year just for novelty value because they only produce pumpkins that are around that size, about 3 to 4 inch across. But they do turn a nice orange colour and they are still edible. Plus you can grow those in containers like we did last year. So you can have a vertical growth of miniature pumpkins. It's space saving and it's something different. And that's why we're trying them again this year. You can also get these in pure white as well, but they're not called Jack the Little, they're called something else, and I'll try and find out what that is for you. That's if you fancy growing miniature pumpkins and you'd like to get some orange ones and some white ones for later in the year. That shallot that we put in that 2 litre container has now got even bigger. It's really split off. So we're just going to leave that in there, see what happens. Keeping his eye on roots at bottom of container as always. But I want to see if this is going to get big enough to split off into that 5 or 6 bulbs that it should do. Or will this container be a little bit too small for that? Because if it is, we can always move it into a slightly bigger one. But for the moment, it seems to be doing perfectly fine. So are these tomato plants that we moved into 2 litres. And that's why I say, why put your plants in ground now when there could be a risk of frost, when all you need to do is just move them into bigger containers and let them grow on. And this is the Sweet Million plant. So full size plant that produces bunches of little cherry tomatoes. And you can see that it's growing perfectly happily in this container. And it's bigger than it were when we first put it in, which was only about a week ago. And the same with this one, which is that Cherry Falls. So a cherry bush tomato. So I'll just keep them in these containers over the next few weeks, because they'll put on probably twice that size by then as it gets warmer. And then once we've passed that last frost date, probably the second week in May, we can plant these out knowing everything's going to be alright. And that's why we move them from one thing to another. That's another one in a 9cm pot, but roots are coming out at the bottom. So it's time to move this one on so we can increase that growth over the next few weeks. So still lots of little jobs that we can be doing, even though weather outside's not really suitable to be doing any work out there. So we're still at that point where it's all about sowing seeds and moving things on to improve growth. We're just not quite there yet with planting things outside or even in greenhouse. Not for me anyway. I'd rather not take that risk after putting all that effort in to bring these plants on over the last couple of weeks. And because we do so many different seeds, there's always going to be something to prick out. These plants have come up quite well. We don't even need loads of them, so we didn't put lots of seeds in. But that's broccoletta. So this plant grows little broccoli type florets that come out the sides at stem. And it has a couple of leaves either side as well. And they're also edible. So this is something different that we're trying this year. But once again, rather than working outside, we could be pricking things out in here and put them into their own little containers. And that's exactly what we did with these plants. That's Calabrese. And they were very small plants, probably around that size. And we decided to move them into these bigger cells. So every plant that was separated has now got its own growing space. And they're perfectly happy in here. You can see that they've put on a lot of growth since we moved them. Very healthy looking plants as well. They're all stood perfectly upright because we did bury them a little bit deeper as well. And these are just about ready to either be put in containers or planted outside. But while we've got them in things like this, why rush? They're growing perfectly alright in here. They're not going to grow any faster outside until it warms up a little bit. But if you really wanted to put them outside, you could, because they are cold hardy. But they're going to be susceptible to slug damage because they're very small seedlings. And I'd like to get a bit more size on them before I decide to put them outside, because a slug is going to make very short work of these little plants, to the point where they'll probably stop growing altogether and then you've got nothing. So you might as well wait until these plants are twice that size. But obviously if you want to plant them in containers, that's not a problem, because you can keep them containers inside, you can keep them off the ground, and keep those slugs away. So even as we're approaching May, we're still not in that position where we can start filling up those raised beds. We're still looking at potting things on, sowing fresh seeds, and maybe planting up a few containers, because we can protect those a lot better than we can something like this out there. And that's the whole point of what we're doing all the way through April. Growing plants, protecting those plants, potting them on to get bigger plants, so when it does hit the second week of May and we've passed this last frost date, we're going to have loads and loads of seedlings that we can quite safely start to put outside. So don't rush that just yet. We've also got some containers that we did, and I think that was only last week, those little caravan bowls that we drilled holes in the bottom of. And we set up lots and lots of different types of salads, so we can take as pick over various varieties as we're going through the season, because they'll all be cut and come again types. They've just been left outside because they're cold hardy plants, so that's not a problem at all. But even though the weather is still a little bit up and down, we've had quite good germination. So we'll nip out, have a quick look at those in comparison to what they were only a week ago. And we will do it really quickly because it is throwing it down. So just have a quick look out here with it being so miserable today. That's that French salad that we put in. It was only just starting to germinate when we last looked at it, only a week ago. And now we've got lots of germination. Those are those little finger carrots. And we have got some germination, albeit slow, but again, carrots are very slow to germinate. And then we've got that spinach planter, which again wasn't showing much sign of life a week ago, but now you can see we've got loads and loads of little seedlings all coming up. That mustard has gone from strength to strength as well. Really good germination. And then next to it there's beetroots up as well. We also did some pea shoots, and again they're now starting to push through. And this one is a red salad leaf, and it's called Apache. And you can see that that again has got really good germination. And that's another French salad one, doing really well. So you can see, even though it's not really the best of weather, those little salad containers outside are growing perfectly alright out there with no protection whatsoever. And we've had really good germination as well. We've had good germination in this greenhouse, and we're moving things on, and we're getting really good looking healthy plants. So for me, it makes more sense to concentrate on this still. So we'll get some of these moved on to grow bigger, and then we'll plant them out in a couple of weeks time. And we'll just keep potting on these tomato plants and anything else behind me that needs it. You're much better off doing that than taking that risk just for the sake of a few more weeks, because it would be devastating to just jump in and take that chance and then lose half the plants that you've spent all this time growing. As itchy as your fingers are, let's all just carry on doing this and hold back, because that last frost date is going to be here before you know it, and we know we're going to be very busy all the way through May. So if you are at a bit of a loss this weekend of what to do because this rain is going to persist, sow some more seeds, pot some things on, because the more you do, the more you're going to have come May, and you can never have too many plants. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you do find something to do this weekend, and I hope you do hold off that planting on tender crops like peppers, tomatoes and cucumbers, because we don't want anybody to lose a single plant if it can be helped. But we've got plenty of jobs that we're going to be doing inside greenhouse if necessary between now and start of May. And if you want to see what they are, please hit that subscribe button and press that notifications bell. And we look forward to seeing you on the next one. Take care.